Thank you for attending our Survive, Pivot, Adapt and Thrive webinar held on the 11th of May, titled Leading Successfully Through the Crisis. Following is a copy of David's presentation for your reference.
Let's get going. We've been running workshops for leaders now for 16 or 17 years or 18 years, once a quarter. And because of coronavirus, we can no longer do the quarterly face-to-face, which are usually for half a day. So we're now going to run a series of 1 hour webinars monthly for probably the next 6 months. And the date for our next one is actually already set. It's the day after the June long weekend. So it'll be a Tuesday as opposed to a Monday. And the theme throughout this year is predominantly going to be around leaders and leaders' roles and how we're going towards setting a direction. And that theme about leadership and leadership skills is all related to your responses or the responses that members of this webinar program and leadership group put in last year. So there's a heap of information there that you filled in based on that information last November. These webinar series have been formulated around that to respond to your needs. Okay, so I think leadership at the moment is really being questioned, and coronavirus is really making us focus on how important our leadership is to the outcome of our business and to our customers and our employees, and trying to keep our employees in a safe environment where they feel valued and certain where we possibly can make that happen is a real key thing that we've got as an opportunity going forward. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some online features and tools that we can offer to you, and then we're going to go through a roadmap, talk about the roadmap through the crisis, and we're going to talk about where you might be and some interesting ways of looking at how your leadership role is affected by those different stages. Then we're going to talk about the severity of where you are, and that'll lead to the first open discussion. Then we're going to talk about 4 key elements of attributes of successful leadership during crisis. There's some really good take-home messages there. Some of it's obvious, but I found even when I was doing this presentation, and I'm talking to leaders all the time in my prep, it was really good for some of those principles to come to the forefront. And equally, it made me aware that some of those principles, when we're in crisis mode, we tend to forget, and therefore refocusing will be really important. Now, we are recording this webinar. We are going to edit out any comments that you make. So let's just talk about some of the tools that Mindshop have got available for us to help us in this environment and what we can do and offer to you. So the first thing is that Mindshop is a group of business leaders, both it's an Australian-based company. They've created a network for business leaders right across the world. And one of our guys, Dr. Darryl Cross, who's a psychiatrist, and Dr. Chris Mason, a psychologist, have got together and put together a brand new online course around resilience. For any of you who wish to do this course, it's just a matter of contacting us after the webinar, and we can make it available for you to do. Or if you wish to refer anybody else to it, please get in touch with them. And matter of fact, the course is actually free up until the 30th of May. So if you'd like to do the course, then please contact us about it. What's really good about the course is it's a mixture of Dr. Darryl and Dr. Chris talking to you, demonstrating tools that'll help you solve things, but you also got some worksheets that you can actually fill in. It's a self-assessment. It doesn't go to somebody else for them to critique you, but it does help you get some clarity around how you can build on improving your personal resilience. And I think it's one of the themes that we're going to talk about in this workshop. It's just one of 18 courses that we now have available. Problem solving, strategic planning, which are fundamental principles, managing change in the change success process, coaching and developing people, facilitation skills, growth strategies, leadership development, personal development, profit improvement, project team management, time management, personal resilience, business intuition, developing strategies in volatile times, entrepreneurship, lean management skills, sales performance, self-confidence, and now we have the resilience program that's been developed as well. So any two of those courses you're able to do free of charge, provided you register before the 31st of May. And I highly recommend them to you. All you have to do is identify the ones that best suit you. Or if you've got people in your employ or friends or other business leaders who would get value out of doing this, then please contact us, because I think these are great ways to help you fine-tune your skills. And amazingly, since this Mindshop opened up these courses in the last 3 weeks, there's been over 1,200 people register, and they're finding the very high completion rate as people are using this time to refocus what they need to do to build their capability and skills. So it's a free offer, it's sitting there, please use it and go from there. The other thing is that for those of you who I coach, who have got the Mindshop online platform, please look at some of the tools that are out there. Most of my clients that I'm coaching have access to the online environment, and at the moment I'm constantly using these tools to remind them of what might be most important for their business as they handle the progression through the coronavirus. So if you'd like to join and have access to these tools, there's over 140 business tools. There's a confidential coaching environment there. Please give us a yell, talk to Fiona or myself, and we'll talk to you about the fees and charges associated with getting access to that platform and for me to be able to coach you online. But it's amazing just how frequently at the moment, every time I turn around with a client, we've got a new problem to solve. And by going to the toolbox and doing the online coaching environment, how much response we're really achieving. It's been a fantastic change that's happened as a result of coronavirus. People are really looking at their online environment and looking at their skills and actually using more business tools to solve problems. Leaving those resources behind, we're now going to talk about the roadmap through the crisis and where are you now. And I've got to offer that in regional New South Wales, we've got lots of different things that are happening for lots of different businesses and all at different phases. And most of my clients, well, I've got all the extremes in my clients. Some have been forced to close. Others are trying to struggle to keep going. Others are really thriving, and they're all presenting new challenges and new opportunities for them. So we basically see that there are 3 phases. The survival phase, where you're having to adapt rapidly to the current market and the market conditions. And there's a lot of disruption, and some businesses in the survival phase have got low impact, and some businesses have got very, very high impact, and some are just busy because pharmacists, for example, are just they've had to run more shifts and stay open longer to just keep up to the demand. Supermarkets, of course, is another classic example. We're 8 weeks in now, or I think it's 8 weeks, and amazing amount of change has happened in 8 weeks, and a lot of people are still in that survival mode. Some businesses are already at the second phase where they've pivoted and adapting, and some businesses, matter of fact, went straight to the thrive. And I think there was no such thing as survival for a supermarket chain. They were actually putting people on. They went straight to the thrive because people moved to a panic situation. And my observation is that we've still probably got 60% of the regional businesses that we're dealing with are still in the survive area of business, moving towards the pivot and adapting. So there is starting to become some norm, particularly as businesses are being and the public are being told that we're going to transition back to a normal environment. So people are starting to try and think about how they're going to move out of that survival mode into the pivot and adapt. So let's just have a look at each one of those stages in a bit more detail, make it a little bit easier than trying to concentrate on all what's written on one page. So in the survival stage, this is where there's rapid change going on in the marketplace. There's disruption, but for some there's been a mixture of low impact and some high impact. Overall, as a leader, the biggest and probably the most important thing is being just to keep calm, to think strategically, and to work with regular communication with your team, suppliers, advisors, customers. And I think perhaps if there's been one trait that I've really seen that shone for those businesses that are handling this initial impact, is the ability to communicate and to communicate clearly to team members and to their customers as to what's happening in their business. Even businesses that have had to close are still out there openly communicating with their customers, telling them when they're going to reopen, thinking about things that they can do, and really have been, in some cases, I've been amazed at the response that they're getting from their clients and their loyalty that's being generated, even though they can't deliver a service or sell a product. There's some fantastic stories out there. But it's all around being able to do disaster scenario planning. If you don't plan on how you're going to respond, then you are unable to make the move to change, to adapt to what's going on. Basically what we see is we've got clients who are really busy in even this survival stage, still doing well, but disruption on the way they're operating. Certainly businesses that have stock that's being imported have got demand for the product, they just can't supply. So there's regular interest in what's going on in their business, but they just can't get the stuff. There are businesses that have experienced low impact, and where the biggest issue that I see in these businesses is that they've lost 10 to 20% of their sales, and that's had a pretty severe cash flow impact on them. And then, of course, the people who've got high impact have had to shed staff, had to reduce costs all over the place, and it's been really, really stressful for them. And some have had to hibernate their businesses or open up with small components around how to make their business work. Certainly the Job Keeper program and some of the initiatives been offered by the government is now giving those businesses, particularly in the survival phase where you've had more than a 30% reduction in your income, it's given them a way of seeing a way forward to retaining staff and to working with customers. In some cases, the businesses still can't open their doors, and they're using their time with their staff to contact customers and make personal approaches. They're cleaning their businesses. A number of publicans that I've walked past, they're using this time to renovate their pubs. They're washing down their buildings on the outside. I think some of these businesses have never been so clean in all their life, but it's a way of using their labour and making sure people feel that they've got a purpose and a function. Some key things to use here, particularly is your strategic planning and looking at scenario planning, thinking about, and we'll talk about a little bit later on, but looking at different phases of what's going on, taking out any excessive expenditure in your business, looking at risk mitigation strategies, and certainly the online courses around profit, strategic planning, self-confidence and personal growth are really important. And perhaps one of the key things that we've seen is the number of telephone inquiries we've had from business leaders over these last 8 weeks. Our phones have never run so hot because people just want to talk to somebody about what to do. And I would encourage you to keep communicating, particularly with your advisors, to make sure that you're getting the right feel for what's going on in your business and keeping yourselves healthy. The next area where we're seeing people moving into as people have got over the crisis is those people who are pivoting and adapting their businesses. And one of the things about this is that lots of businesses now changing the way they deliver services. Zoom meetings, I think some cases we're becoming Zoom overloaded, doing these video conferences or doing video calls. But in actual fact, it's actually forced people to really value the relationships they've had in their business, and using technology to actually help them do it means that there are businesses now redefining how they're going to service customers in the future. And they're looking at what are some practices that are actually coming out of this that they need to keep in their business. And so at this stage, I think what's really important for you as you start to adapt, there are lots of things that have happened in the crisis mode of the first 8 weeks. Some of them are things that you actually want to keep. So don't jump back to saying once we think we're going to get over this crisis, that some of the initiatives you've taken can't be adapted into your business model. And I certainly know my wife, Prue, and she might give comment about it when we get our question section. She's had to completely adapt her model of delivery. Her business was closed, and now she's got ways of, through an online app, of being able to deliver new services. And that's going to be a new way of doing business for her as time goes by. One of the other things I think is really interesting is that as anybody's had anything to do with agriculture, they've been really surprised at just how the rain has triggered so much activity, and it's kept them resilient through this. But even for them, being able to access some of their products has meant that they've had to change suppliers. They've figured out which suppliers are long-term relationships. Some supplier behaviour has not been customer friendly, and unfortunately those businesses are going to suffer the consequences of that afterwards. But anybody who's stuck by business and helped people through this period are really going to benefit from it, because they've had to pivot and adapt the way their business is going. Perhaps the thing that I'm seeing for those that have got lower impact, that is a 10 to 20% reduction, people are stopping to look at how their services, and I'm looking at this section in here, how they can change their product or service offering. It's amazing what's happened, how people can now offer additional things as a follow-up to the service offering that they're providing. The follow-up email to make sure that the goods were received. Tracking of product being through Australia Post, using Australia Post to send goods out, but using that tracking service so that people know that the certainty of their goods are being delivered, and also therefore certainty that they can pay, that they're going to get paid for their goods because they know when the products are being received. Certainly what I've been surprised is that the number of people who are now starting to blend a product with a service and a service offering, and using even products or services by other players in the same market, putting them together and actually offering them to customers to actually help them actually see where they can do things differently. So once again, looking at online courses, the leadership development, scenario planning, looking at your competitor analysis. Clearly in this pivot and adapt phase, some competitors aren't going to survive. So therefore that creates an opportunity for you. Other competitors have responded very strongly, and they're offering a different service which you need to review and figure out. So looking at tools to help you analyze what's going on in your marketplace are really, really key. And particularly those who are in the high impact area, continuing to look at strategic planning, continuing to rerun new strategies, and looking at what other competitors or other businesses are doing is a key element for their success. And then thrive. Luckily for some businesses, coronavirus has been an absolute godsend. They've never made so much money. I was talking to a butcher the other day, and he said they can't keep up the meat supply. He's never had so much demand ever for the services that he's been provided, and keeping his staff going and access to good product has been really difficult for him. So if you're in the thrive mode, then make sure you take, once again, what opportunities this whole process has allowed. Clearly, those people that I've seen that are really retaining their customers and working on customer loyalties have gone and done a lot of work around their client contact management, and making sure that they maintain that going forward is going to be a key. So they've really started the valuing of your customer relationship and retaining your existing customers, not just chasing after new customers, is probably being one of the key focuses for businesses that are thriving. They've gone back and said, let's value the relationship we've got now. Let's prioritize that relationship. Let's be in contact with them and actually delivering a higher level of service. And because they've been able to respond in that way, they're attracting new business just because they've kept such a good reputation coming from servicing their existing customers. So the question I've got for you guys is, where are you at? Knowing where you are, at what stage your business is at, has different demands on you as a leader. And I think the challenge is not over. As a matter of fact, on the radio this morning, they were talking about second waves. China is having a second wave. Other countries around the world are now starting to experience a second wave. And so we're not through this at all. We're still going to have to pivot and adapt. Some of us, a lot of people, particularly in the hospitality industry, are petrified that they open up their doors and then are forced to close again, and how they can maintain this sustainability. Same in retail. Service industries in some areas are highly affected and others not. So leaders, our skills are still going to need a fair bit of fine tuning. And so there are 4 key attributes that we're seeing that are helping leaders in crisis. And they are, first of all, adaptability, which we'll talk about. The second one is agility. The third is resilience, keeping us going. And the fourth one is scenario planning. And we'll just go through each one of these. And I think all 4 of these go hand in hand. I can see people being adaptable and agile, but if they're not doing the correct planning, and if they're not protecting themselves and not trying to do everything themselves, then they're not actually being able to achieve the change that they need to. And certainly I'm hearing that in the conversations I'm having with leaders. So adaptability. Charles Darwin, it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent that survive. It's the ones that is most adaptable to change. And how true is that, certainly in this environment? So we're not going to play the video, but when you get the presentation, I recommend that you listen to what Natalie has to say. And she's talked about 3 different attributes of adaptability. So Natalie's did a TED presentation, and she works with businesses that are startup businesses who are seeking entrepreneurial finance. And her observation in the work that she's done is that there are quite often, we look at in our businesses, we look at people who've got past experience. She says that IQ or knowledge of business and previous studying courses was a fundamental about how to change to select what we should be doing. The second thing is there are people who are EQ or emotional intelligence, who have got years of experience, have been through change and other things. They've also been a way in which we've been selecting people to help us in our businesses. But she's suggesting that when an investor looks at a business before he parts his money onto this person who's got all this drive and idea, the interview process should consider their ability to be adaptable. And she says the elements of adaptability that she's been able to identify through her research and her working in this marketplace are, first of all, do they have the ability to ask the what if? What if we have to face a global pandemic? Or what if the marketplace booms? Or what if a major competitor comes? So in looking in your business and you as a leader, are you asking yourself, what if this happens? What if that happens? So the ability to look outside the norm. I think a lot of people, certainly in the survival mode, have been saying, what if we never can open again? What happens if we lose our customers? We've been in the negative phase, but what she's saying is the more adaptable you are about asking a range of what if questions about the future, the more opportunity you've got of actually moving to thinking about how to test yourself in this crisis. The next thing she talked about is people who are willing to unlearn. So perhaps a good example is Shane's example of we can't buy stock in the sale yards, so therefore we have to unlearn the method of selling in the sale yards so that we can learn a new method. And she says that those businesses that are going through this unlearning, or business leaders who are prepared to unlearn, in other words, my skills are this, but if I didn't have those skills, how else would I go about things? Then that creates an ability to be more adaptable. And I think the comments I often hear is, we've always done it like this, is a reflection of not unlearned. Just because we've done it like this doesn't mean it's right. How can we now do it is a better way for a leader at the moment to be talking about adaptability. Can we think about doing something differently? Then the third method is infusing exploration of new innovation and new opportunity. Shane's done it by using Auctions Plus, but Carrie in their business has done it by using Workplace. But we're seeing there's a whole range of new software and new apps. Prue's doing it with the Gusku app. You know, here's how can a sole trader run a business with an app? You know, how can she create? She didn't create it herself. She went and used somebody else to do it. And one of the things about this thing about exploration of new technologies and how you can bring it in to your business, now that we're in this phase, or some businesses are moving into this phase of adaptation, this is the time when we should be really challenging ourselves to say, what's going to be the pathway forward? Whereas in the past, people have said, I don't want to explore something new, I just want to exploit what I already currently do. And when you've got a good solid business, there's a tendency for us to say, what we've done in the past is the way we should do it in the future. But if you're going to be an adaptable leader, the question you've got to ask yourself is, how can I change that? How can I adapt? What's the next step that I should be taking? Who can I follow, whether it be inside my industry or in an industry like mine? Can I take an idea and how can I infuse that new thought into my business? So that's adaptability. Great video, by the way. She's got some good examples and a lot can be gained from that. The next method we need to talk about is agility. So agility comes from, certainly this part of the presentation comes from some work done by McKinsey's back in 2015. For some of you who've been at a number of our workshops, we keep coming back to this theme. But there are two elements of having agility. One is having a stable foundation. So before you start making rapid changes in your business, you do need to recognize what are the fundamentals of your business that are stable, that set the foundations to your business. Have you got the right people? Have you got the right finances? Do you have the right suppliers? And certainly, I've heard some pretty horrific stories of suppliers who are refusing to provide product to customers because they're worried about whether they're going to be able to pay the bill. And so imposing repayment programs, basically where they're paying cash on order when they used to be on 30 days or 60-day terms. those sort of suppliers aren't going to be the future for those businesses. Or if you've got people in your business that are not the long-term future of your business. And one of the hard conversations we've certainly had with just about every one of our customers when we've gone through the survival mode is, who in your team do you need to base your business around, and who on your team is not going to be really their part of your future. And funny thing, lots of people have tried to save the people who've not been the players, not been the team players, who don't have the best service record or the best attention to detail, at the expense of not talking to their key employees. So get a stable background first, backbone, I should say, stable backbone, and keep your stability and base your business around those fundamentals. Then the second thing about agility is then where can we create dynamic capability? Is there new products we can provide? Is there new online services we can provide? Is there somebody who's got a better access in the supply chain that values our business? What's going to give us the capability is we've had a number of new clients, for example, who are spending more time asking us to provide them with services around helping them understand their financial numbers or developing new scenarios and playing scenario planning, because it's not the way they normally think. So they're coming out and asking for professional advice to help them do it. Certainly we're seeing a lot of that in the digital marketing space. Everybody's being forced to go and think about digital marketing. Many businesses just don't have the internal capability or resources to be able to do that. Yet the future going forward is about being able to maintain agility to go forward. So what do you need to do in your business where you need to strengthen your backbone or bring in some dynamic capability? And certainly Prue bringing in the Yisku app is an example of bringing in a dynamic capability that creates a new opportunity for your business. Resilience. I think what happens for all of us is that this has become sort of the modern word. We've got to create resilience, but I don't think too many of us actually understand how to and how to maintain it. And certainly when you're the leader, it's the hardest thing for you to do. It's hard to stay on the up. It's hard to stay in the positive frame because you're always being under attack. You're always worried about the things that might go wrong. So let's talk about what we believe are the three key elements of resilience. The first thing is control of your behaviors, thoughts, and beliefs. So what is the messages that you say to yourself? What behaviors do you find yourself are you, my wife will laugh at this, but do you have good sleeping patterns? Are you spending too much time coming home and poring over the numbers and not ever giving yourself a break? Are you not exercising? What can you control that keeps you in your best state? When we're not in a crisis, when you're feeling the best, quite often the way to think about this is when I felt really, really good and things were not in this crisis environment, I was exercising every day or 3 times a week. I had social get-togethers with my friends. There was lots of positive talk. I had good thoughts. I had some affirmations I was using. I was doing professional development. What are the things that I can control around my own behavior, my own thoughts, and my own beliefs? And how can I use affirmations or prayer or whatever it is the trigger to keep me in control of me first of all, and the messages I'm giving myself. The next thing is, do I know how to solve problems? Unfortunately, we've grown up in a culture these days where we've got a problem, we fix it. What we don't ever do is think, why am I fixing it? What are the options of my fixing it? lots of people tend to rely on the same problem-solving method to solve everything without ever stopping and reflecting or seeking input from other people and helping them solve problems. So the more diverse the range of problem-solving skills that you've got, and the more you engage other people in your problem-solving, particularly as a business leader, creating a format for solving problems leads to change in the capacity of your management team, in yourself, in being able to respond to a problem. Quite often I come across businesses who are putting money, time, and people's resource into solving a problem that doesn't need to be resolved. Or they're solving something that's an effect of something else, not the true cause of it. And of course they didn't use problem-solving skills to define what the problem is, to look at the impact of the problem, to look at all the key elements of a problem, then they don't solve the problem adequately, and so forth. They lose their resilience because they come up with, well, we can't fix that. We couldn't fix it last time. Why am I going to be able to do this time? Right? And that's all because they've lacked the skills. And I think I started off the video by saying, the presentation by saying, we've had an increasing number of clients using the online environment where I'm referring them to new business skills or new business tools as ways for them to actually solve the problem. And we're getting some fantastic results. They're surprised at just, most of the time they know the answer, they just don't have a way of getting that answer out from themselves. And the third element of it, of resilience, is about managing your feelings. Feelings is different to point one about behaviours, thoughts and beliefs. Feelings is, I'm upset, I'm not in this, I'm not feeling well, or he makes me really cranky every time that happens, or every time I see this same pattern happen, you know, I start to put out some negative energy. Controlling your feelings, yes, it's important to have a feeling, and yes, it's important to recognize how you're feeling. Yes, it's important to have a cry if you need to have a cry, right? Recognizing that feeling and making sure you control that feeling afterwards is important. It's the action you take to change it that makes the difference. But if you let the feeling totally consume you, then you don't have a capacity to change your problem solving, and you don't have a capacity to change your behavior. So if I want to become completely absorbed in my feeling about disappointment or whatever else, then I won't think about how I can actually change and what I can take control of. So really important. And I think the analogy that Chris is showing in the video that's on the screen is that we're in a, you know, life's the river. We're on a river. Every river has a flow, and as the water goes through it, it goes through different obstacles. This is the same as our life. Our life has an ebb and flow. How do we make sure we maintain ourselves in the center of the current where it's the calmest, the smoothest, the quickest down the stream, rather than getting caught in rapids or getting caught in backwaters or running aground on shallow banks? Where can we get the best of flow? And the way we can do that is by making sure we have good structured behaviours, thoughts and patterns, being able to predict the problems we can see that are going to come up and work on our problem solving, and make sure we keep ourselves in a best, most stable state emotionally to make sure it happens. And the last area is scenario planning. And boy, oh boy, in the last 8 weeks, I've never done so many scenario plans for so many businesses, and we've discovered so many different opportunities or responses that have been necessary to keep businesses going. So scenario planning is for a skill of a business. We've first of all got to think about, how do we do a scenario planning? There are 3 types of environments which we've got to think about when we do scenario planning. First of all, what's the best outcome we could see of our current environment? The second option is, what's the medium or middle likelihood of something happening? And the third one is, what's the worst case scenario? Certainly when we're in the survival mode, working on the first three options has been really, really helpful. Yeah, what's going to be the best outcome for us, what's been the medium outcome, and what's the worst? And many of the clients that I've worked with where we've worked on the worst, we've been able to avoid some of the things that we hadn't thought of and wouldn't have thought of unless we'd been forcing ourselves to be in a really negative space to think about our planning. We can be lulled into a false sense of security right now as we start to move out of the survival mode into the adapt model, before the thrive, in failing to remodel what's going on. For some businesses, they've had an increase in customer numbers. They've assumed that that's because they're starting to assume that those people are going to continue to keep coming to them, when in actual fact, it's just been a reaction to what's been going on in the environment. They've got actually no plans to retain those customers now that they've had that increase in activity. Or for those people whose businesses are being significantly reduced, they've done a lot of work to retain the customers, but now that the doors are going to open, they're thinking, oh, we've done all the retention things. They haven't thought about what the future engagement is. So look at your three different areas and work on those areas. Sorry, the three different types of scenarios: best, medium, and worst. At each stage as you go through the recovery phase, and particularly if we end up in the unfortunate situation where we have a second wave, how is your business going to evolve? And maybe we need to go back to some of those initial scenarios. So in doing a scenario, you've got to first of all analyze where you are now. There's a whole range of business diagnostic tools, and your financial statements is a good place to start. But there are, we have, I think I have access to 13 different types of business diagnostic tools. Some are applicable for manufacturers, some are applicable for retailers, some are relating to people management. There's a whole range. Identify what your pressing concerns are now, and also what are your potential opportunities. And sometimes those potential opportunities are removing the negative things in your business. The stock that's not moving, the staff member who's constantly late, is always grumbling, whatever else. But what's the now scenario? The next thing is to conduct your where picture. And as I said before, looking at the low severity, medium severity, and high severity areas, what that might look like in your business. And then the third area is then sitting down and building a plan for each one of those scenarios, identifying what the risks are, how you might remove the risks or remove costs, where the growth opportunities are, and where can we add innovation. And if I look at risks, some of the risks, there's lots of tools that can help you look at the risks. Doing a cash flow of the scenario is a great risk management tool. I'm staggered at the number of businesses who've done scenario plannings, and when I ask them, can you show me the cash flow implications of that scenario, they have not done it. And so therefore they've underestimated what the impact of that scenario is on their business and their capacity to recover. And therefore they haven't actually taken into account the right risk management strategies that they needed to do, all because they didn't take the scenario and convert it to a cash flow. There's a number of manufacturing techniques like the failure mode effect analysis tool that we could do. Removing wastes and costs, you can do a waste audit. There are 8 different methodologies of asking different questions. Growth opportunities, there's 4 ways to grow a business. There's product portfolio analysis, you can put products around, you can do competitor analysis. There are a whole range of tools that you can apply to help you build that. But scenario planning is the next best method. So the 4 skills that you need going back is how adaptable am I and how can I increase my adaptability? How agile can I be? What's the backbone of my stable backbone of my business, and what's the dynamic capability I can introduce? How do I maintain my resilience? What do I have to control in my beliefs and thoughts, my problem solving ability, and how do I make sure I keep my feelings in control? And one of the interesting things about feelings, it's amazing the number of people who are ringing me up or ringing up our business, and I just needed somebody to talk to because I'm not feeling so great, right? Using outside people to give you that emotional support is really critical going forward. And then finally, doing scenario planning, spending time mapping out worst case, best case, and medium case scenarios. I think the biggest value comes usually in the worst case because it makes us confront the things we don't want to confront. And that actually helps us quite often to discover the things that are most valuable in our business. So they're the techniques. So back to you guys. What do you think you need to work on in the next 30 days? Because we're in a highly volatile thing. So where do you think you need to apply some focus? What action do you have that would you like to take? There's a new online course in resilience, and we are offering 2 online courses that we've got out of that very extensive range: entrepreneurship and problem solving and strategic planning, or personal development or leadership. Those online courses are all free. So if you know or would like to be interested in doing that, please contact us in the next month so that we can get those to you. So 2 online courses are free for anybody who wants to register. I think there's some great stuff in there and really builds your skill. The other thing is, leaders, are you agile? Have you do you know how to do your scenario plannings? Are you doing the scenario plannings often enough? And are you really checking them out? Do I need to change my personal statements about my resilience, about my thoughts and my behaviours, or am I letting my emotions get out of control? How do I maintain my agility? And so quickly, what's your top 3 or 1 strategy? Even one. Let's just have 1 strategy for everyone that you might like to do out of today. Can I offer is one of the things that this happened with a client last Thursday. They've been concentrating very strongly on social media, and they've been getting very good results out of the social media. However, they've spent a little bit of time now actually emailing their existing customers and talking to them in an email format with video, attaching video to it as well. And the response rate from their existing customers, where they've got that information, where they've had that personal touch and they've been consistent, they've not just done one off and then forgotten about it. There's been one message followed up with a following message, and it's been personalised. They're staggered at the results they've been getting. Additional repeat purchases from them, but also referral. So I think sometimes we go Zooms, people over Zooms a bit. People are saying, oh, I'm all on social media. But in actual fact, if we come back, short, sharp, personalised messages through our database, and by the way, personalised, it just means putting Dear David on the top. The content may still be the same. Now, our next one, which you'll all get invited to on Tuesday at 12 to 1 on the 9th of June will be our next video. So forward to seeing you then.